back to the JR Takes podcast. As always, Jonah Hoffman and Ryan Rogers coming at you live. We are currently in Super Bowl week, preparing for the Kansas City Chiefs and the Philadelphia Eagles game. Not exactly who I would have liked to see in the big dance at the end, but that's usually the way it goes if your team's not in it.
I can't think of a year where I was stoked about both participants in the Super Bowl. Last year, I was furious that the Rams were in it, and then when they won it, it was a nightmare, worst case scenario. Mm-hmm. So it is what it is. You know, at the end of the day, 31 teams are pissed off at the end of the Super Bowl. So it's the way it works. But I do think, just from an objective standpoint, this is probably the top matchup we could have hoped for, because throughout the regular season, who were the top two teams in each conference? They were literally the number one seeds, the Eagles and the Chiefs. So I think it's exciting to have Jalen Hurts be in the Super Bowl, however, though, because a couple of years ago, I was like, he looks like a guy that's going to be out of the league in like 3 years. He got his job taken in college by Tua.
I remember when we all watched that game. Remember that?
Yeah. That was the national championship where
when Hurts was not playing very good, and then he got benched.
And then Tua was like throwing bombs. Mm-hmm. See, that's what's weird about the whole arm strength thing with Tua, because like my lasting memory of Tua in college is that game. And he threw a couple like Russell Wilson-esque, just deep rainbow shots down the field. I don't know. I know he's had some injuries, but
yeah, I think he had a hip injury, and I think that really not like. I mean, you see when Dak warms up before a game and he does that hip thing. I don't think Tua can move like that.
Well, I think like your legs and your core is like 70% of throwing power, probably, if not more. So it makes sense. But yeah, no, it's definitely an exciting matchup. I mean, do you really even care who wins? Do you have a preference?
Not really, because I was thinking about it, and no matter what the outcome is, both of those teams, since I've been a football fan, have the equal amount of Super Bowls as my team.
Yeah.
So
that's how I feel.
No matter what, one of them is going to leapfrog us, which sucks.
Yeah, it's kind of lose-lose from a Seahawks fan perspective, because I really feel like in the NFC, the Seahawks were the team in the 2010s.
Yeah.
And we only have one Super Bowl to show for it. And now one of these two teams that is much more recent in their ascent to the top is going to have two, which is irksome. But let's jump into our predictions. Might as well. I got the Chiefs winning this one. I don't really want them to. I think I would rather have the Eagles win, just because Hurts has never won a Super Bowl, I guess. But I think the Chiefs are going to win it. I think it's going to be a good game. I think the Eagles defense could really be the difference maker in this, because I think they're better than the Chiefs defense. But the Chiefs defense has been playing pretty solid as of late. And I think with Pacheco, the Chiefs have just found a pretty good run game, which is sort of the weak link in the Eagles defense. But I'm thinking Chiefs 34-31 kind of game. Maybe that's more points than is realistic, but I just feel like with both these offenses, they're going to find ways to put points on the board, and they've had a couple of weeks off to rest, any lingering injuries and stuff like that. So that's my overview of what I'm predicting. What about you?
I'm going to say 31-24. And I'm going to go Eagles. And I do think the Chiefs, it was hard for me to pick the Eagles because the Eagles have played Daniel Jones and
I know
nobodies for the Niners. So they
had like one of the easiest paths to the Super Bowl I've ever seen.
Yeah. And so I think if they were playing Mahomes, I think it might catch them with their pants down a little bit. And I think that they might start a little flat. That's kind of how I'm predicting the game goes. And then maybe they come out and figure it out in the second half. But I could see that going down both scenarios. They win and lose, but they start off the game kind of not really, like I said, caught off guard. So I'm gonna go with the Eagles in the end, but I think it's gonna be an ugly first half.
It's funny hearing you say all that because I've had all of those same thoughts trying to predict what's going to happen with this game because the Eagles played one of the easiest schedules in the regular season. They played, I think, the easiest postseason path to the Super Bowl I've ever seen.
Yeah,
and,
I agree.
But at the same time, I do think they were overall the best NFC team this year. You know, the 49ers for a little bit looked better, but, you know, injuries are a bitch and it is what it is. But they're a fantastic team. They don't really have any, like, really pronounced weaknesses. Hurts has been an MVP candidate. You know, they got one of the best wide receiver duos in the league, and AJ Brown and what the fuck?
Devontae Smith.
Yeah, thank you. I can never remember these young receivers' names for some reason. Yeah, no, and you could also make the argument that the Chiefs are more experienced. But the thing is, when it comes to Super Bowls, like, I don't know, the Seahawks dominated the Broncos in the Super Bowl, and that team was so young, and the Broncos had so many veterans like Champ Bailey, you know, Peyton Manning, obviously. There's lots more on that team that just were a lot more veteran and experienced than that young Seattle team. So I don't really feel like you can point to the experience thing as like a absolute factor.
I think the only time the experience thing has ever been a real stat is if Tom Brady is your quarterback and you're in a Super Bowl. I think that's the only time when you can point at that statistic or situation of veterans improving your chances to win the Super Bowl and see, because Tom Brady was 7-2 or no, 7-3. Lost
crazy.
to Nick
He was
Foles.
in 10 Super Bowls. It was almost half of every season he played, which I guess since we last spoke, Tom Brady retired again.
Oh, I was hoping we weren't going to bring it up.
Okay, well, too late, I guess.
No, I'm kidding.
Did you see
I'm
the
just
shirtless-
relieved. Yeah, I saw that.
Okay, that I guess we don't need to talk about it anymore. But
I think we do, actually. Because honestly, like, ew.
it's just a little more of Tom Brady than I ever wanted to see personally.
Yeah, like, fucking, I don't know. Just
It's gotta be
his
weird.
underwear choice, everything about it was just like, bro.
Yeah, you're almost 50, man. What are you doing?
Yeah, there are kids that are going to be seeing that.
What a weird place in life to be where you've been like one of the most recognizable faces in sports for multiple decades. You've won 7 championships and now you're like, you know, on the wrong side of 45 and you're single. Like, what a weird situation to find yourself in.
I mean, like, trying to be optimistic for Tom Brady, but like, I was thinking, like, he's got to feel like, I don't know, maybe he feels empty because he's lost his family. He's not playing football anymore. He's done all he can do. How does it go up from here?
Yeah, I guess I see what you mean because, like, man, when you've, like, reached the pinnacle of what you do in your career 7 times, like, I don't know, like, what do you find in life after that that's going to be that satisfying and fulfilling?
Exactly.
You know?
And like, football is such a huge part of our culture that, like, going to the Super Bowl and winning it that many times is like kind of like one of the most impressive things you can do in America. I feel like.
Well, I mean, a lot of what Tom Brady's accomplished is just flat out never going to happen again. It just can't. The amount of, look, he is the GOAT, but he's also the LOAT. I think we've talked about this before. He's the luckiest football player ever. Like, not just all the crazy plays that have happened and benefited him in big situations, but just the fact that he was never injured besides that one season. And, you know, like, it's like, there is a lot of luck involved in football, and Tom Brady played this game longer, better than anyone ever has or probably will. But, like, I just don't even think, like, anyone's going to be able to play that long without getting a serious injury again.
Well, and I think, too, no one's going to be able to play that long with 3 other franchises in their division having such poor success for 2 decades. I mean, the Jets, I know the Jets were good for like 4 years in like the late 2000s, but that was fraudulent.
Yeah,
Mark
I mean,
Sanchez was not good.
Yeah, like let's be real. The Jets, they were a fun story there for a minute, but I mean, they haven't been to the playoffs since.
Yeah, I think they have the longest playoff drought of any NFL team.
They do
right now.
I'm pretty sure they do. Yeah. Once the Bills started making it, and yeah, I think the Bills were like the longest drought.
Yeah,
I was gonna say I think the Lions have the longest playoff drought without a win though, and it's something. Dude, I feel so bad for Lions fans. I think since like 1960 or something like that.
Didn't they win one in the 90s, I thought?
They did. It's been like almost 30 years, I think. But since the like 60s, they've won like 4 playoff games, like total. It's brutal to be a Lions fan. But I think things are really looking up for that franchise right now, especially when you look at Green Bay. Tom Brady, do you think he's coming back, or do you think he's done for good this time?
I think he's done for good. I'm like, dude, just stay retired. You have nothing more to play for.
Well, and I think, like clearly he showed he can still play this season, but I don't know. I mean, at 46 years old, can you still throw for 5,000 yards? I don't think so. Like, if anyone can do it, he can do it. But I do think it's at the point where he's proven enough. I mean, he proved enough a decade ago, in my opinion. Like, it's overkill at this point. And I'd much rather just have Tom Brady, my lasting memories of him playing, being like, at a high level, than to have him like come back and have a final year like Brett Favre did, where he was basically just a zombie, did not look like the player you had watched at all, regardless of how you felt about those two guys. It was like, just as a sports fan, it sucks when you watch someone that's played a little too long and they're not able to do it anymore. Mm-hmm. It's hard to watch.
Yeah.
So I think this is probably as good a time as he's going to get. Like you could argue if he had retired 2 years ago after that Tampa Bay Super Bowl, like, that might have been the perfect time, but still. I mean, there was a certain point last year where he was still putting up huge numbers at age 44 where I was just like, I've spent most of my life hating this guy, but this is pretty fucking amazing. Like, this is just not going to be done again. So he played long enough, excellent enough for me to just be like, I have nothing but respect for this man.
Yeah.
Even though if he is annoying and is like,
I guess he's all right.
Yeah.
He won't be missed. But.
No, that's definitely true. And if you look at the landscape of the NFC quarterback situation right now, it's really interesting because there's a number of free agent or likely to be traded quarterbacks getting on the market this offseason. Biggest names out there are obviously like Lamar Jackson. I don't really think he's going to test free agency. When is the last time that has actually even happened where a franchise quarterback was able to test the market, besides Tom Brady after the Patriots? I mean, Kirk Cousins.
Peyton Manning?
Oh, yeah, I guess, yeah. Because I don't know. Would you count Kirk Cousins after the Redskins?
No, he wasn't good when he left the Redskins.
It's not the same.
And he's not good now, so
it's not like a guy who's won an MVP, So it's definitely different. But yeah, Lamar Jackson is gonna definitely reset the quarterback market from somebody this offseason.
Did you hear about another quarterback that might be on the move? He's doing a 4-day darkness cleanse.
Yeah, Mr. Rogers.
Okay. That is so stupid, by the way.
The darkness cleanse?
Yeah.
It just sounds really boring.
Well, this is what I'm thinking. Like, Aaron Rodgers turning a new leaf last offseason and, like, finding out about him being, like, in touch with his mental health and doing all these psychedelics and blah, 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 blah. I thought that was really cool because he was opening up to the public about a very, like, vulnerable state that he was in. Mm-hmm. But this seems like, look at me, I'm Aaron Rodgers, look what I'm about to do. That's kind of what this seems like. And it's like, do you really need to do this to figure out if you want to play professional football and make $60 million? Like, come on,
do you think he's
bro.
Just making it up?
Maybe. That's my point, is like, maybe he's just bullshitting everyone, which... I guess I can sort of respect that a little bit. I think that that's kind of funny
to me,
because he's just getting people like you and me to talk about him once again.
Well, if that's a strategy, it's working.
I know. That's why I'm like, damn, okay, well, I guess I respect that. But
yeah, Rodgers, if nothing else, he's an interesting cat. There's not really anyone else in the pro sports world I can think is that similar to him.
Someone, I read in a YouTube comment the other day, someone said he's the Kyrie Irving of the NFL, and I kind of agree with that. I think he's not as much of an idiot.
I was
going to
say,
Irving,
I'm not trying to sound like a asshole or whatever, but I think Aaron Rodgers is a lot smarter than Kyrie Irving.
No, I agree. I'm just saying, like, I read that and I was like, I could see that comparison.
Yeah, they're
both out there and they both say things that you're like, okay. But yeah, Kyrie Irving, where he's coming from, he says a lot of stuff that you won't forget because of how stupid it was.
Yeah, I mean, he was saying the world is flat, and he said some not so great things about the Jewish community that I don't want to get into on this podcast. But yeah it's different, but also I kind of get it.
Yeah,
the comparison. Do you think he's gonna come back to the Packers? What's your prediction?
I think he is, because he's not gonna go to the AFC. Why would he do that? He's gonna be 40.
Yeah, and I mean, he even last year, like, he didn't have a bad season, but he had his worst season statistically since not his rookie year, but his first year as a full-time starter. So I don't know. I think if he were to go anywhere, he should go to a team like the 49ers, honestly.
Yeah, I thought it was weird that he said in an interview that he's not going to San Fran, because that's a perfect fit for him.
I know. I would absolutely hate that, though. Can you imagine how awful that would be?
That would really suck. I'm glad that he's not interested in the idea. I think he stays in Green Bay because he kind of started developing a relationship with his offense towards the end of the year. Like, they were clicking, and they just... Yeah, they ran into the buzzsaw that is the Detroit Lions, and like they kind of just couldn't slow them down. So I think the Packers, they'll have a better year next year. I think they'll play if Aaron stays, which I think he will. Look, because like I said, there's like no competition in the NFC compared to the AFC.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I've been trying to allude to, is like all of the good quarterbacks are in the AFC. And it just, from anyone trying to make a move, it makes more sense to land on an AFC or NFC team, because your route to the playoffs and the Super Bowl or division, whatever it may be, is going to be a lot easier than in the AFC, just inherently.
I just need to say, Aaron Rodgers going to the Jets because they hired Nathaniel Hackett. Like, I don't care what their relationship is together. The Jets organization doing that, thinking that would work. Is that not the most Jets thing you've ever heard of? Hey, let's hire the guy that we just saw paired with Russell Wilson, who had the worst offense in Broncos history. Let's hire that guy to run our offensive play calls in hope that we get Aaron Rodgers' interest and the Packers' interest peaked enough to trade him to us. That's the worst.
Well, it kind of reminds me of when everyone thought that Adam Gase needed a job because he was the Denver Broncos coordinator when Peyton Manning threw 55 touchdowns. It's like, dude, that was because of Peyton Manning, not because of this fucking idiot. Like, look at how bad he was. It's the same thing with Aaron Rodgers and Hackett. Like, Aaron Rodgers is one of the best quarterbacks that's ever done it. I'm pretty sure that had a lot more to do with it than this fucking moron that doesn't know how to get a play call out in time.
Have you seen that picture of Nathaniel Hackett after he is hired by Denver and he's sitting there with his big bald head and like there's a Denver helmet next to him and he's like, I'll pull it up.
I almost feel bad making fun of Nathaniel Hackett because I feel like dude, that guy has had to have a rough year from like a mental health standpoint. I know it comes with the territory when you're doing anything at the professional level, but like, man, I hope he doesn't have a Twitter. That's all I gotta say.
Well, did you see what Sean Payton said about Jay Keeps? And
I did. Yeah, I guess let's talk about that for a second because, Sean Payton, who I honestly have never been a big fan of. I've always kind of thought he was a douche. Yeah. But He's the Broncos coach now, and the Broncos are just determined to burn all of their draft picks on old quarterbacks and coaches. But anyways, he's going to Denver. How do you think that's working out? And what do you think of his remarks about Russell Wilson's Team 3 getting the boot?
I kind of feel for Jake Heaps personally, because I used to listen to him all the time, and I really liked listening to him a lot. And I know that obviously he moved to Denver and like changed his whole life to be like on Russell Wilson's coaching staff, whatever. But at the same time, like, yeah, Russ needs to be fucking humbled, and he needs to go back to the basics of you're the quarterback, you're not the head coach.
I feel like Russell Wilson needs to like go listen to how he used to be in like 2012 and like find that guy again, because that guy was someone I fucking believed in. It just even like I feel like the way he used to talk was a little bit different. Like it seemed more like he's always talked like a coach and like a robot kind of, but like for the last couple of years, it just felt very, very like
it's like felt like in every
politician.
Yeah, he's trying to be like, oh, I'm cool, I'm cool, Russell Wilson. Like,
yeah,
I relate to everybody, and Wendy, the Wendy lady that she is in the cafeteria working really hard all the time. You know, just shit like that.
That's
when he's
a pretty good impression, honestly. There's no video, but even the mannerisms were on point there. But like, yeah, no, he's trying to be Mr. Cool Guy celebrity, and I know this is totally ad hominem bullshit, but it's also, in my opinion, true. And I just think like he's just got to embrace the dork that he is and not care about the rest and just get back to the basics. Because I do think, you know, there's no physical reason why he can't be just as good as he was for us with the Broncos. It's all between the ears, and it's all ego, I think. You know, like maybe Russell Wilson needs to go do some ayahuasca, man. Like that could help him tremendously.
I think it would.
Yeah.
I really think it would. And that also, like,
can you imagine if him and Rodgers became homies all of a sudden? I think that could be like the biggest cure for all of Wilson's problems.
Well, that leads me back to Rodgers and all of these media people, like in sports. It like is really mind-boggling how uneducated all of these sports hosts are with psychedelic drugs.
Well, a lot of things. Honestly, so many sports like media people, when I listen to them talk, I'm like, how did you get this fucking job?
Dude,
I shouldn't know more about football than you. You get paid to do this.
Well, this is unfootball related. I think Brock Heward's an amazing football analyst, but that guy, like, he just sounded like such a cookie cutter the other day, yesterday, I think it was, when I was listening to him talk about Aaron Rodgers and doing ayahuasca. It's just like,
what was he saying?
He was just like reading off the drugs, and he was like, DMT? I don't even know what that is. And they were like, all right, so they were doing like betting odds on what drugs Aaron Rodgers was going to take, and they've all judging Aaron Rodgers super hard, and I was just like, you guys just sound like you don't know what you're talking about. That's all you guys sound like.
Yeah, they should like listen to Joe Rogan podcast.
Well, and remember that Colin Cowherd episode when he compared doing ayahuasca to drinking Captain Morgan? Like, you are stupid.
I think that's just an example of sometimes people just got to stay in their lane, man. Like, if you don't know what you're talking about, then don't have a big take on it. Like, it's
on a show that's nationally televised.
Yeah, you're not talking about LeBron James.
You can have an opinion
substances.
On it, but when you put it out on that platform, you look stupid.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, no, it's definitely interesting to like be having those like realms crossing over though, where it's like, you know, I've never done those substances, but like I remember first hearing about that stuff on Joe Rogan like 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And to have Aaron Rodgers be going on the Pat McAfee show talking about it, it's just kind of cool because regardless of what you think about Aaron or those things, like having a big time athlete like open up about something like that, like no one would have been talking about that like 10 years ago. You know? Like even if they were doing it, they would not have been talking about it. And I think something that's really good about the modern age is people seem to be being more real with each other. Like, and I think everyone is realizing that authenticity is one of the most desirable things in a person. I mean, I think that, but everyone thinks that deep down, whether or not they even realize it. So I think that's also, just going back to Wilson real quick, I think that's part of why he's had such a tough couple of years here, is because no one really buys the persona that he presents, you know? And like, even if that is really him, like, which I think to a certain degree it is, he's got to find a way to be seem more human, more fallible, you know? Because like, it's not sustainable, you know?
What I've noticed when I see Russell talk is like, he's never, nothing is ever unacceptable to him. It always seems like, like nothing makes him mad. Like his previous performance in X amount of games, like 10 different games, like I never really heard him like pissed off or
the only time I can think about him actually even saying, like, showing any real frustration was, do you remember when we played the Packers in the playoffs in 2019 and they got off to a big lead and we almost came back?
I mean, yeah, we lost.
Yeah. But I remember in the post-game interview, and this was right before the Let Russ Cook season in 2020, he was like, "Oh, I just think it's unacceptable," and he actually seemed like pissed off that we didn't win that game. And I was like, "Oh, cool."
That's
like,
my point, though, is that was in 2019.
Yeah.
He's a different person ever since Russ Cook started happening.
I swear it's like been since that Arizona game that we lost, where I don't know. Some people speculate this is going off into harebrained like Reddit theory, but he took a huge hit in that game, and some people were like, is he just playing concussed? Because he threw an interception immediately after the hit.
I don't really remember the game.
Oh, okay. I mean, it is years ago now, but anyways. Yeah, no, I think you're spot on. It's just, it's going to be interesting to see how that Sean Payton situation works out, how they, coexist together.
I personally think it will work out because Russell Wilson is going to be so ass-kissing, like, I want to be friends with Sean Payton approach to it. That's what I think. I think he will do what he says.
I don't think they're going to be much better than like 9-8 next season, but I do think they'll be better. Because, like, honestly, Denver wasn't a bad team last year, like, on paper. It still doesn't make sense to me that we have a top 5 pick because they have a lot of good players, especially on defense. And it was like, how the fuck are you guys not winning these games?
Well, that's kind of like us 2 seasons ago. We were really good with Russ, but we only won 7 games. And I know he got hurt, but we were still a really talented roster that year.
Yeah. I mean, I agree, but I also think, like, Bobby Wagner and Wilson and some of our like star players were really like propping up a very talent devoid roster. I still think the Seahawks got a lot of rebuilding to do. But it's great because we have 4 picks inside the first 2 rounds this year. And honestly, I guess let's shift gears here a little bit, just focus on the Seahawks offseason. Decision number 1, what do we do with Geno? Because let me tell you right now, if you don't think Geno Smith is going to get paid $30 million, you think again.
I think we should let him walk.
Really?
Yeah, because if we're going to focus everything on the defense, why not just have Drew fill in and we'll draft a quarterback next year based on how we do this year? Because are we all in for we can win a Super Bowl, Geno? Because he couldn't beat a single NFC South team, and he didn't win us a playoff game, and never has won a playoff game.
I mean, I don't really think that's totally fair, though, because it's a team sport, and the way Geno played in all of those games with a better defense is good enough to win.
I just also don't think that 1 year of you've proven to us 1 season that you can play like this.
I do agree with you there. I think the sample size is relatively small. But I do have to say, Geno made so many wow throws last season.
That's the only thing.
I'm like, we're not going to get that out of a rookie quarterback, and I don't think we're going to get that out of Drew Lock. I think we could get something different out of Drew, but he would be cheaper.
The accuracy and the completion percentage was was something that isn't a fluke. You can't fake that.
Yeah. I just think Geno's a cool guy too. I like him, but I mean, yeah, it's a tricky situation because like we have effectively like $31 million in cap space roughly. You know, you just think if Geno's cap hit is like 25 million next year, because even if he signs a 35 million a year contract, the cap hit won't necessarily be that exact same number. We could do a couple things to make some cap space, like letting Gabe Jackson walk, which please, he's terrible. Sorry, Gabe, but you're done. There's a number of other guys, but a guy like Poona Ford. Well, I think actually he's a free agent. There's some people we could let walk or cut this offseason that would save some room. But yeah, I mean, we have a lot of other holes to fill for sure. So the argument of getting a rookie QB or, you know, rolling the dice with Locke or even having him be a bridge quarterback, I don't know. They all make sense to me. But I think from the argument of let's go for it next year, because I mean, think about it. We did make the playoffs this year. Like we had a good team. And a lot of our competition, I think, are going to get knocked down a peg this offseason. So I think from the argument of let's go for it right now, we got to re-sign Geno. Because I don't think you're going to have someone come in at all and be able to play that well without, you know, already being entrenched into our system and having that accuracy. Because he had one of the better completion percentages. He literally had the best one the Seahawks have ever had. So everything about Geno last year was legit, but I do see from a cap space argument and from it was a 1 year thing argument, like who knows, he could fall off a cliff next year. You never know. Mm-hmm. So I see both sides of it. I just right now I'm leaning towards like, let's just re-sign Geno to like a 3-year deal. And, okay. So from that standpoint, if we draft a quarterback this year, let's say we use one of our first 2 first-round picks on it, which guy do you want out of this draft class?
Like if we with the 5th pick,
5th or 20th, or maybe we move back. Just forget
Bryce.
You want Bryce Young?
Yeah.
I just don't even think that they will get a chance unless they literally trade for the number 1 pick.
Yeah, I don't either. But again, I don't really think there's that big of an issue moving forward with Drew Lock and seeing what he could do because he's young and I mean he didn't really get a fair chance last training camp.
And he did get to watch Geno for a whole year and kind of see a veteran guy who's had a really similar kind of experience that Drew has had. They're both 2nd round picks. They're both drafted to horrible situations.
That's why I'm saying like I love Geno, love him as a guy. Like he's solid dude, seemed like a great leader, but like I just don't think that we need his services. Like I think we can be fine without him.
He deserves a big bag from whoever will give it to him.
And I think he will get that.
Yeah. No matter where he goes, I'm a Geno fan till
It'd be kind of interesting if he went back to the Jets.
That would be interesting. I feel like he'd show up there and be like, oh, so now you want me, huh?
It'd be kind of funny if he chose to play bad on purpose.
But took like 100 million guaranteed from them.
Yeah.
Oh, that'd be amazing. And then we re-sign him and win a Super Bowl.
How long do you think this is like this
Forever.
time frame is? Like he's going to go to New York, play like 2 seasons, come back, and then win us a Super Bowl?
Hey, it's our podcast. I can bullshit if I want. But yeah, no, I totally think what you're saying is like a reasonable, logical argument, and I'd be all for it. But as far as the quarterbacks this year, I actually think whether we re-sign Geno or not, or have Drew Lock for a couple years, I think Anthony Richardson is who we should draft out of this class because he probably has the lowest floor out of the top 4 guys. But he has arguably the best arm out of all of them, definitely the best legs, and he's just a freak athlete. Like as a prospect, he will come into the National Football League with a top 10 arm and top 3 running ability. You know, all the other guys that are in his category are like Lamar Jackson and Justin Fields.
I guess the reason why I'm so attracted to the Bryce Young pick is because he's been in commercials. He's been making millions of dollars in college already. I feel like he's already in that NFL environment, like playing for Alabama.
Yeah, Alabama, Georgia, that's like as close as you can get these days to, being in a pro environment.
Well, and remember when you saw him in the Dr. Pepper commercial in the beginning of the college football season? Like, that's never happened before.
It's
college
kinda
player
weird.
being in commercials never happened before this year when they started doing all those college players can make money now based on deals and whatnot. But
like, don't get me wrong, I would be excited if we drafted Bryce Young. I just want him to bulk up like 20 pounds.
I really don't think that that's a difficult thing to ask for, given that he's going to be surrounded by professional nutritionists and trainers.
I mean, I agree. I just feel like his frame is so small. Like, I don't know. I guess he is young too, but it's just he's like the smallest, like, weight-wise quarterback I've seen besides Kyler Murray, who's stockier because he's like 5'4". Mm-hmm. But I don't know. That's my only thing with Bryce Young. Like, literally everything about him is great. Just his size is concerning to me.
I mean, Justin Fields isn't that big either.
He's way bigger than him. He's like 230 pounds probably.
Really? I thought he was like 6'1".
Well, let me just look it up because I don't know off the top of my head, but I'm pretty sure Fields is, because I remember watching him play and I was like, oh, he kind of reminds me of Russ a little bit, but he's a lot bigger. Yeah, he's 6'3", 228. So
Okay, so he's normal
a big
size.
boy. Yeah, that's like prototypical NFL quarterback size. But yeah, so you're not a fan of Levis or CJ Stroud then?
No, I'm not it's not that I'm not a fan. I just I would choose Young over both of them. And Levis, I have no interest in.
Well, he's already going to be 24 by the time he starts playing this fall anyway. So those other guys are younger. I think they were more accurate in school for sure. I think people compare Levis to Josh Allen a lot for some reason. I don't really see it. I don't really see the comparison at all. But he's a big guy with a big arm and can make all the NFL throws, which is enticing. But yeah, this quarterback class, it's going to be interesting to see how they turn out because it's certainly better than last year's class. But it was hyped a lot coming into this season.
It always is. I feel like the quarterbacks for next year's draft are always really hyped for the current draft, and then you get to next year, and then it's like, oh, they're actually not that good. Never mind.
This does have.
They're doing that right now with the three of these guys. They're like,
Caleb
oh, Will
Williams.
Levis is actually like, there's maybe there are some issues with his game and blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
And like, oh, Bryce Young, he's small. Like you said last year that these guys were amazing. What are you talking about? Now you're getting cold feet because the draft is 2 months away.
Yeah, I actually listened to Mel Kiper this morning saying that this was like overall a bad draft class.
That's my point. Last year, everyone was like, wait till next year's draft. It's going to be insane. And it's like, now it's bad because we're here.
I remember, so when we were doing, I can't believe it's almost been a year, but I remember when we were doing the draft research last year, because people were saying like, oh, the top of this year's draft class is not impressive. But I was like, all right, well, I don't know. I just watched the combine and like 20 receivers just ran into 4.3s. That seems pretty good to me. Like, and then sure enough, this year's rookie class of receivers, there was like 6 really good rookie receivers. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't know. I think a lot of scouting is pretty like not
kind
that
of
solid.
lame. It's like a bunch of people doing groupthink bullshit.
Yeah.
And like no one having a real opinion because they're like, oh, they said this. Well, I'm gonna change my picks because I don't want them to match yours.
Well, especially before you get to combine or pro day or any of that stuff, like the measurables do matter. I think sometimes people can put too much stock into the combine, but look at Tariq Woolen. No one knew who the fuck this guy was when he was playing at UTSA. He comes to the combine, runs a 4.26, jumps 50 feet in the air, and is like strong.
He's a better corner than Stingley Jr., who they took at number 3.
PFF just did a redraft, and
and
they
he got
Yeah, he had him going. They had him going third overall to the Texans. We got him at like 150.
I know, crazy. And when we got him, I remember thinking like and seeing all the measurables and being like, this is too good to be true. This guy's not going to pan out. And then he just played exactly how he was measured.
I remember I was so excited when we drafted him because he was actually someone I did research on just because of their combine performance. Because I was like, this is like alien numbers. This shouldn't be possible. And then when he starts the year against the Broncos, I'm like, holy shit, we're actually starting him. He was playing receiver like 18 months ago. And he performed way better than I think anyone could have imagined. Even with those like innate gifts athletically, like no one could have predicted that he would actually get 6 interceptions and make the Pro Bowl. You know, if it wasn't for Sauce, he would definitely be rookie of the year defensively. Maybe Aiden Hutchinson.
Well, I think too this season it was pretty abnormal in the sense of how many rookies we had starting, because before the season started, like you would speculate Tariq Woolen and Kobe Bryant being like, oh, well, they won't be starters by week 1, but they'll sub in and get some playing time here and there, you know, yada,
or at
yada,
least
yada.
special teams. You know?
Yeah. But no, they were like our nickel corner, Kobe Bryant. I think he had the most forced fumbles of any corner or rookie corner. I can't remember.
Of any defender.
Okay. Yeah, so that's insane.
Yeah, and Kobe Bryant, he got so fucked by penalties because
he had 3. Didn't he have like 3 turnovers?
Yeah, he had 2 interceptions and another forced fumble all get wiped away by penalty. It's like,
that's brutal.
Oh man, you got to feel for the guy. He would have been up there with the top rookie cornerback numbers if they didn't do that. But I mean, I still think it's cool that he showed what he could do, and he's going to be a lot better next year. Yeah, so I guess with the quarterback discussion aside, what positions do you want the Seahawks to attack with this draft? Because they got a lot of ammo.
Yeah. So defensive tackle.
I think that's probably the biggest need on the team.
Defensive tackle, center. I heard that from a mock draft that we might take a center with our 2nd overall pick, which I wouldn't be opposed to.
I wouldn't either. I would rather use our first 2nd rounder for it because I think the top center in this draft, in my opinion, is a guy named John Michael Schmitz, and he tore it up at the Senior Bowl. He's like this year's Tyler Linderbaum or Creed Humphrey from 2 years ago.
Might be this guy that I'm talking about.
It probably is. I wouldn't be like, because it's such a big position of need, I would not be mad if we used like the 20th overall pick on him. But I just as a positional value standpoint, I feel like that's a little high for a center. But dude, we fucking need a center. We haven't had a good center since Max Unger. Like, it's been a long time. Yeah.
So what's that? Defensive tackle, center. And then with the next 2 picks, honestly, I would not be that mad if we drafted a receiver.
I was going to say, I think that
we need to stop going after these stupid little speedy nothings that amount to nothing in 2 years. We need to go after a kid from a school like Ohio State or
there's that Ohio State
or the SEC. In general,
because that's where like look at Justin Jefferson and like Devonta Smith,
all of the elite receivers that are in the game right now, like. Or within the past decade, a majority of them have come from the SEC.
Yeah, that's a true statement.
Yeah.
I think it's something our offense is really missing too, is just a true wide receiver 3. I think Goodwin had some great games last year, but he's older.
He's so unreliable too. He's been injury prone his entire career.
Yeah. And it makes more sense to be paying a rookie receiver like $800,000 than to pay a 33-year-old vet like $2 million. If you can get someone with comparable talent, like we don't need another DK or Tyler, although that would be amazing.
Well, do you bring back D. Eskridge or do you just?
I mean, I think we have him for another year. Honestly, I think we should dump him for like a 5th rounder.
I agree.
I'm sorry, but I just want to move on from him because it hurts.
Yeah.
To think about what could have been.
I also kind of have been. I was on the excited for Jamal bandwagon, but now that I think about it, he hasn't stayed healthy for a full season with us at all.
I think we should use a mid to late rounder on a safety, just to have some more depth at that position because we might lose Ryan Neal. I'm really excited for Jamal to come back because when he's healthy, he is like the best player on our defense. He's really, really good. Like, I don't want to undersell how fantastic of a player he is. But yeah, no, the health is a serious concern. I don't think he's able to run right now still from his injury from week 1. It was a bad injury, dude. Like, this whole muscle just got disconnected.
Yeah.
A torn quadricep, like that. Think of how big your quad is. It's a hard injury to come back from. So I don't know. I hope for the best for Jamal. I love the energy he brings, but yeah, I think that's a position we should strike. One thing you didn't say is guard. I really think we need to draft a guard at some point. Probably I would like a 3rd round guard personally, because Gabe Jackson just can't get the job done anymore. Phil Haynes, he's flashed at times, but he was one of the worst linemen in the league last year from PFF. Damian Lewis is great, but I think if we could get a center and a guard in this draft, think about that. We would have 2 tackles that are second year, Damian Lewis in his 3rd or 4th year, I believe, a rookie center and a rookie guard. That's a young offensive line, and if we hit on those 2 interior pieces, in a couple of years, if we keep these guys around, we could have one of the best young offensive lines in the league. And as the game has shown the last few years, the trenches are what gets you to the fucking Super Bowl. You know, like, I think receivers and quarterbacks and running backs can like cover up a lot of flaws. But if you don't have those elite lines, like think of when the Seahawks made the Super Bowl, both lines were the best lines we've had since easily, easily.
Yeah.
Look at the 49ers. Look at the Eagles. Look at the Chiefs right now. Creed Humphrey, all-pro center, you know, and Chris Jones on their defensive line, all-pro type of player here. The Eagles have one of the best front sevens in football right now. The amount of sacks they got this year, I'm pretty sure they got more sacks this season than the Texans have in the last 3 seasons.
Well, I mean, if you really look at the way football is played, it's not really that surprising when you realize that what you just said is all true, because the trenches are the first thing to impact a play.
Yeah. It's how you move the ball and how you stop the ball from moving.
Yeah, you start there. That's like, it's like order of operations.
Yeah.
Like, you have to start with the lines. Like, that's the first thing that's going to impact the game and the ball.
Mm-hmm. And that's why I love.
And that's why and then you expand out.
Yeah.
Like, so. Yeah, I agree with everything you said.
Well, and that's why I loved that we took Charles Cross and Abe Lucas last year, because this year they were already like plus tackles in the league, and they're only going to get better as they get older. You know, they're young, they're Gen Z kids. You know, now we just need to shore up the interior of the O line, and that's going to make Kenneth Walker run a lot better. That's going to make Geno or whoever else is back there have more time. I also think not in the early rounds, but like after round 4, if we took a running back, because we're probably going to lose Travis Homer. I think of how many running backs got hurt last year and the year before that and the year before that. They just, you get messed up at that position. So I think it'd be a good idea to have another one.
Yeah.
I think we're running out of time here, so gonna wrap this one up. We're gonna be talking about the draft a lot more in the coming months. I'm actually honestly more excited for the draft and the combine than I am the Super Bowl, because it doesn't involve the Seahawks. So.
Oh yeah, fuck the Super Bowl. Honestly, I'm more excited to cook and eat a bunch of food and have people over. And kind of not, well, pay attention to the game, but I don't really care who wins. So.
I'm with you there. But all right, we'll catch you on the next one. This has been the JR Takes Sportscast, signing out.
Yep, thanks for listening.